It says we're live, but there's no timer going.
All right. Are we live? We're live, right? Yeah?
Yes, we are.
I think we're live. Okay. There was no timer going on your screen, Matt?
Uh-uh.
Oh, well, there was on mine, so that's probably
good.
what matters, hopefully. Anyways, we're here, and it's a simul stream. So we got, it's on my channel, it's on my Twitter, it's on Adam's YouTube channel, it's on Nathan's YouTube channel, it's on Adam's Twitter, and your Facebook too. Yep. I think you linked. Mm-hmm. There we go. It's on everybody's except Matt's. I'm sorry we didn't include you. Maybe we should have asked. But anyways, for the people who aren't watching because you're on my Twitter or my YouTube, I'm Pierce. Hello. I do Street Epistemology. I hold some practice sessions on the Discord. I do all types of that stuff. I held a workshop in St. Louis for the SSA. I do Street Epistemology stuff. And I'm joined by all these neat people, and I'll let them introduce themselves. We'll start with Adam.
My name's Adam. I run the Curious Christianity YouTube channel. I have a lot more, typically Christian conversations, like to talk about biblical subject matters, exploring the Bible, and answering tough questions in the Bible, and some questions that are not necessarily super important, but just really interesting to explore. Yep.
Hey, Nathan, you're in the middle. What? You're frozen.
Cool. So yeah, I'm Nathan. Oh, I'm frozen.
You're good now. You were.
Okay, good. I'm good. All right. Sorry about that. Hi, I'm Nathan. I run a YouTube channel called The Epitome, and I kind of just recently started about a few months ago, and so I'm kind of new to all this. But basically, I love to do apologetics videos and talk about the faith and defend Christianity, and I think it's a lot of fun, and I hope to have a good time during this conversation.
All right, and Matt?
I'm Matt. I have a super tiny YouTube channel called Mighty Conversations, where I post so far just a handful of street epistemology conversations.
All right. Cool. So before we get started, I just want to say there's no need to email any of the folks down below. You can. I mean, if you have their contact information, you absolutely may. But if you want to tell them about how great I am, you don't have to. You can actually tell the whole world right in the comments section. So feel free to do that, and they will see it. So there's that. I just want to throw that out there. And for those who don't know what street epistemology is, if you're not here because of my channel, if you're here from Adam or Nathan, street epistemology is a method of engaging in conversations with people to explore their beliefs through asking open-ended questions in a respectful and non-confrontational manner. So you don't want to butt heads, you don't want to debate. The goal is to encourage thoughtful examination of why a person holds a particular belief, and if such reason is reliable enough to match their current confidence that their claim is true. So we like to have cordial conversations. That's what it is all about. And what we're going to be talking about today is Christianity. So two of my guests believe that Christianity, the Christian God, is true. And one of mine does not. And I've got some notes here, a note screen. Hey, there it is. It's working. Beautiful. So I'll be taking some notes. I'll probably be flopping between this screen and this screen quite frequently. But I guess we can get started. So I would like to start with you, Matt. What is your confidence that Christianity is true?
Christianity. Should we spend any time in the definition?
Sure. Actually, maybe we should start with that. That's a good call. Thank you, Matt. Keeping me in line. We'll start with Adam. I guess, what is Christianity to you? How would you define Christianity?
Let's see. I guess I would define Christianity essentially. I guess I would say that it's usually the belief that Jesus Christ came to earth, was the Son of God, lived a perfect life, died on the cross, rose again, for the sins of mankind, and that those who follow him, believe in his teachings, and obey him, they will ultimately be called the children of God. And so this is the message for mankind to enjoy God forever, and fellowship with him. I think Nathan might have a more succinct definition, perhaps.
Okay.
Oh, well,
Sure. What do you
don't
got,
put any
Nathan?
pressure on me. So a good definition for me would first be the belief in a triune God, the Father, Son, and Spirit. That, like he said, the second person of the Trinity came down and lived a human life, died for the sins of the world, and fulfilled the old covenant of the Abrahamic covenant. And now he has the new covenant where salvation is offered to the entire world through faith in Jesus Christ.
Okay, fantastic. So kind of what I picked up on, it sounds like your definitions are very, very similar, as I would kind of expect.
Otherwise, this was about to be a very different conversation.
What is Christianity?
Sure. So sounds like you both believe in Jesus and that he died and rose, the triune God. Adam, you said that Christianity is about a message to mankind. Nathan, do you kind of agree with that as well?
Yeah, it's the message of salvation to mankind.
Gotcha. Okay. So you guys kind of both agree on more or less the definition of Christianity for the most part.
Yeah,
Yep,
I agree
believe
with
so.
everything he
Both
said. I agree with everything he said. As long as he agrees with everything I said, I think we're good.
Yep, I think we're on the same page.
Okay.
All right, cool.
Awesome. We're on the same page. And I don't think that I guess I don't really need to ask your opinion, Matt, since you do not believe that.
Well, would you ask him if he believes the same thing?
Yeah,
or would you disagree with the definition that we've put out?
No, I don't think I disagree with it. And I'm happy to go with your guys' definition too. I was just thinking that what I was hearing was it sounds like it's sort of a set of beliefs. And I think maybe Adam, you had the only in the list that you had there that Jesus died on a cross. I think there are certain aspects of Christianity that I have a pretty high confidence in. I think maybe what we might focus on is the bigger claims. Is that fair to say?
Well, I also wanted to just make sure that, because I felt like I did mention the idea of enjoying him forever. So I feel like that is a significantly larger experiential claim than it is purely a theological proposition.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to use that too. That's fine. Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay. I guess with regards to Christianity, it's just such a vast set of a belief, I guess. It encompasses a lot. I guess would you guys be comfortable at least starting off? We can switch it as we go. We can talk about multiple different things if you guys want. But do you want to start off just by talking about the Trinian God? Basically the God of Abraham, I suppose you could say. Is that a fair? Cool?
I'm sorry. I guess I just don't know what do you mean? Just talking about God and his nature, or what do you mean?
As a truth claim, as this God exists.
I'd be happy to defend that claim. Sure.
I don't mean to like whittle down the conversation anyway to like piecemeal it up or anything. I just wanted to, I guess, initially make sure we were on the same page. And then
yeah. Well, we definitely going to have to focus. You can't talk about it like all at the same time.
Right. So I guess we'll start off there, and if we need to change our focus at any point, we will do that when the time arises.
All right, let's do it.
Sound fair? Okay, cool. All right, I'm going to switch to this. Boom. And I guess, Matt, I'm going to start with you. What is your confidence that that this Trinian God exists?
Like low, medium, high, a percentage?
However you want to describe it. I'm not going to limit you.
Okay. I would put myself on from a 0 to 100, probably around the 2 to 5% range.
5%. Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And how have you come to this percentage, this 2 to 5%?
Generally speaking, when it comes to the claims, in specific, this claim of the existence of the triune God, when I investigate the evidence for that claim, I don't think it matches the claim. That's a good general spot. Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic.
Matt,
And
sorry, Pierce, I'm really glad you're a good typer. You're fast.
thank you. And I'm going to actually back up a step. So for this 2 to 5%, what exactly does that mean? Does that do you have any active belief that this God doesn't exist, or does it just mean like there's a chance, you don't know?
Good question. Yeah. I would agree to the latter two things you said. There is a chance, and I don't know.
Okay.
And that's probably why I put myself at the 2 to 5. Another way that I could phrase it is that I'm highly confident that this God does not exist. But I think it's better to work with a positive claim for the purposes of spectrum anyway.
Interesting. Well, I guess when you say that you're 2 to 5% confident that this God exists, and then you say that you're highly confident that this God doesn't exist, that almost that confuses me, I guess. I'm a little bit confused by that. Like, I guess, are you 95 to 98% sure that this God does not exist? Is that what kind of the inverse of this means? You'd agree to
Yeah.
that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I meant.
Fantastic. Okay, so you're not 100% sure that this God doesn't exist, but you're fairly certain?
Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic. And the reason you believe that is when you investigate the evidence of the claim, it does not match the claim. So are you saying that when you look at evidence, there's no real good evidence? Is that kind of what that means?
Yeah.
No
That's
reliable?
what I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Okay, fantastic. I will move on to Adam. So what is your confidence that the Trinian God exists?
I would say very confident. Yeah, I would be very
Very.
confident in this idea.
Fantastic. And why
Now,
are
just
you?
for clarity, I know you maybe you didn't explain this for everyone else. So, so what you're putting up here is what you guys are calling spectrum. It's like a particular mode or form of SE.
Yeah.
See, like for the rest of us, we haven't gone through this process. So just to clarify exactly, right?
Sure. So it is street epistemology, and I think I do it differently than anyone else who is practicing spectrum street epistemology. So I
So
think
what is spectrum?
the way I define it is just SE with multiple people, and
Okay.
you can talk to a group of people, and if one person has a particular method that they're highly confident is reliable, then you can kind of bounce that off of other people. That's kind of the advantage that I see. Some people use it in a different way where it's kind of like almost a debate. That's I don't particularly like when it's done that way, because I like it to be more just strictly about the methods. But well, here we are.
Okay.
Is there anything I missed there? Was there a question that maybe I can answer about it?
Oh, I just wanted to clarify, since you had this graph up there and everything like that, and people were
Sure.
using the term spectrum, like for the rest of us, that was a completely new term.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, thank you for asking. So you are very confident that this is the case and true. I guess what gets you to that confidence level?
I think the place that I would start would actually be personal experience. And then I would say that I could probably say it in a few different ways, but one of them would be the opposite of Matt's, and that I haven't found any solid arguments or reasons to reject my personal experience with God. And then, of course, I think that there are several good arguments or reasons to also accept God. There are many different arguments that have all seemed to corroborate my personal experiences.
Fantastic. And with regards to, so you kind of gave three different things: personal experience. There's no evidence that shows a God doesn't exist. I believe is that what you meant by that second one? Or did
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. I mean, you have a very small window there.
I do.
And I was like,
I
you know
think-
what? I don't think exactly I can fit maybe everything exactly in there like that, but
That's
you're doing
okay,
a
I
good
don't
job.
have- Okay, fantastic.
We can
then-
leave it there for brevity's sake, I think.
Okay. And then finally, you have some arguments that you think are probably valid.
Let's say corroborating evidence, right?
Okay. Right. So kind of these all work together. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, sure. It's the trinity of
Okay.
reason and
Gotcha.
confidence.
Trinity of reasons. Okay, I love it. I love it. Okay. Is there one that is particularly more reliable or more important, or a bigger chunk of that? If it's a pie, the bigger piece.
Yeah, I guess I don't really know I'm not exactly sure how that would parse itself out.
Okay. Fair enough. Adam, have you always believed in this God?
Have I always believed? I mean, I don't know. I don't know how I would answer that. I guess in some ways I would say no, but I would say I definitely would say that I had some sort of relationship with God from the time I was younger. So,
Okay, I understand. Okay, I think I'm going to move on to Nathan. I'll get him a little bit of speaking time here. How's it going, Nathan?
Good. How are you?
Doing
Am I frozen again, or am I all right?
No, you're doing great.
All right. I just want to make sure because my internet was acting weird earlier. Okay, so
Yeah.
I
no
would
worries.
say also with Adam, I'm highly confident. So you can maybe put very confident for me as well.
Perfect. And I guess what gets you to this very confident state?
Well, I think the first thing I would say is personal experience as well. I believe that I have a relationship with God that I can't really escape from, so to speak. It's just a big part of my life. I think that there are really strong arguments that God exists in natural theology, and I do not think the responses are adequate. And then I would say that the historicity of the Bible would be another one. I believe that the gospel writers have shown to be up close to the facts, and they have demonstrated themselves to have been able to know the words and actions of Christ.
Okay, fantastic.
Sorry, that was a lot.
So, no, perfect. It just fit on the screen, so we're all good. And I can make the font smaller. So we got the personal experience, the relationship with God. There's some strong arguments that you believe are strong, and you don't believe that there's any rebuttals, any responses that are adequate. And we got the history of the Bible. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Of these, I think there's three really, maybe. The personal experience, the arguments, and then the history of the Bible. Of these three, is there one that stands out as more important to
you? My personal experience was what drew me to God. But then when I had moments of doubt, because there was a time period in my life where I kind of strayed away from God, and I kind of still believed he existed because of my previous experience with him, but I had like doubts. And it was like apologetics that like really gave me confidence in my faith. And so because of that, I would have to say either the arguments or the history of the Bible. Those two things have like really given me a foundation to trust my personal experience, because other religions say like I have a personal experience with God too, but I think what separates Christianity from those is the evidence for the history of the Bible, as well as the strong arguments for the triune God specifically existing. I don't think the other conceptions of God meet the preconditions of intelligibility.
Okay. Okay, fantastic. So it looks like you and Adam have a lot in common. So personal experience is definitely one that you both share. Possibly the strong argument seems very similar. I think that was comparable anyway. And then history of the Bible doesn't look like you share it, but maybe Adam feels that way anyway. Quite possibly.
I think that's just a difference in study. He studies philosophy more than me, and I like to study history more. So I think that's just a difference in interest more than anything.
Okay, fantastic. Okay. Matt, I will bounce back to you. So with all of these reasons that Adam and Nathan so kindly gave, are any of these, do you feel like any of these could be convincing to you to change your confidence level?
Man, I almost wish they were bulleted, but I don't think so. If I'm just looking at personal experience as one reason, no evidence that shows that a God does not exist. I think that's just a difference maybe between me and Adam when it comes to what our null hypothesis is. And then depending on the arguments, I'm not sure what they are. It's certainly possible. Let me see, history of the Bible. That I would have questions about.
Sure.
And we could get into that if we wanted to.
Yeah, if you have to answer anything.
If Nathan was able to provide some evidence that these things in the Bible actually happened, what would that do to your confidence, man?
It would depend on which things we're talking about.
Okay.
98% of the Bible, I would be completely fine with jumping behind and agreeing with, maybe in a historical sense, but it wouldn't shift my confidence any. The other 2% of the claims, maybe. Wait, I'm sorry. What was your question again?
If he could, to your satisfaction, show that the events of the Bible occurred, like historically.
It's it's possible that could increase my confidence, depending on how we were verifying it. I guess that would be the sticking point.
See, that makes perfect sense. See, it's that 2% of the Bible where Matt's confidence is missing.
There we go.
So Nathan, look, you don't have to go over the whole Bible. You only need to get that 2% that
Just
Matt
2%.
doesn't have. And
Oh, man.
that's it. That's it, man.
You just made it
You
easy
only
for
need
me, man.
2%.
That's awesome.
It's way easier than,
there's specific parts I've studied more than the other, and there's also specific parts of it we have a lot more information on.
Did you study Matt's 2%?
I don't know. What are you 2%? What parts are you confused about? Or yeah,
it would just be the bigger claims, the claims for which might go against what we understand about what's possible in physics or what's possible with the human body and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
Okay. Let's bounce back to personal experience for a moment, since this was the first thing that Adam gave and the first thing that Nathan gave, which is pretty cool. You both gave the same first answers.
We are both Christians, Pierce, just in case that wasn't clear. we're both Christians. So
yeah, I suppose that is a very popular reason, I think. Yeah.
I want to put it out there that I think it is probably one of the leading reasons that people believe in God is probably personal experience.
That could be.
I agree with that.
Could be. Why is it I guess, would you agree that it is a reliable way to know that a Trinity God exists?
I don't think, now, if you're being really specific, I'll be like particular for half a second. I'm not sure that it would lead you immediately to a triune God, but I do think that it would lead you immediately to God.
To a God.
Right? Okay. So I think God would have to reveal himself as a Trinity, but it's not just like, oh, if I speak to God immediately, I instantaneously know that he's also a Trinity. But
I think we can infer the Trinity from things that have been divinely revealed. So in the scriptures, we see that God is omnipotent, he's omniscient, like he's the greatest conceivable being, as a philosophical way to put it. And there's also verses that say like God is love, for example. And that sentence is unintelligible and like a Unitarian concept of God. So love is a property of persons in relationships. And so if God was by himself without something to love and without something to be in relationship with, then the sentence God is love would be unintelligible. And if God is supposed to be immutable and he doesn't change, then there has to be eternal internal relationships within the God that we would call the greatest conceivable being. And so it actually turns out that based on very simple verses like God is love, we can infer that at the very least God is not by himself, like like a Unitarian conception of God, or like the Muslim or the Mormon conception of God becomes unintelligible once we take those verses as true, if you accept them as true, which I think they are true based on the historical reasons I've provided. But so we'd have to maybe start there. But once we decide that the Bible is historically reliable in what it claims, then we have to infer from the claims that it makes about itself that the triune God is the only logically coherent concept of God.
Okay. So you kind of have to accept the Bible as true before you can kind of get to that next step. Okay.
Well, sure.
Actually, no, I don't. Okay. Never.
To get to the Trinity, I think I don't think you could reason to the Trinity from another divine text, is I guess what I'm saying.
Okay. Maybe. Well, I want to continue to talk about personal experience just a little bit more. To actually, anyone can answer, but I guess regards to personal experience, can someone use personal experience to come to a conclusion that is untrue?
Well, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I guess you guys have used personal experience to come to a conclusion. I guess why is your conclusion true as opposed to being untrue?
Mind if I go first, Nathan?
Go for it.
One should believe their personal experiences unless they have defeaters. So if there are no defeaters for one's personal experience, then one should believe one's personal experience to be true and valid. So.
Okay. Is there any exception to that? Can you think of a circumstance where someone has a personal experience and there's not really any defeaters that they can ever really discover, and that belief still be untrue?
I can't think of any situations in which you have a personal experience, but there are zero defeaters against it, and therefore you should give up the belief without any reasons.
Interesting.
My answer would be exactly the same, by the way. So I have nothing to add to that. Unless there's a defeater for the experience, then you should trust your experience. Otherwise, we're left with utter skepticism
or solipsism, or
that type of thing. That's the only way for us to operate within the world coherently.
Matt, what are your thoughts on personal experience, and should you believe your own personal experience if there are no defeaters?
I don't think I would use that limitation. I think to a certain extent we can and should trust our personal experiences. I, however, feel that if two people can come to different conclusions using personal experience, then for me that I don't know if I would rate like things on a pass-fail kind of level, but it would be close to the fail for a reliable method for me. Just based on that, the simple fact that two people could use it to come to different conclusions.
So can I ask you a question then, Matt, based on that?
Yeah.
Would you therefore say that science is not a reliable method of information?
No.
Why not? People disagree about science every day.
Yeah, absolutely. What can you tie that into?
How's
Sorry, go
that
ahead.
any different? People disagree on personal experiences and people disagree on science. So therefore, aren't they the same thing? What are
think it
you
might
saying that's
be.
different?
I think it might be useful to give an example, if you could, Adam.
Of people disagreeing about science? There are like 14
Yeah.
interpretations of quantum mechanics, right? So which one is the correct one?
Yeah.
So, go ahead, man.
Is there a correct one, do you think?
Yeah, likely. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they're contradictory, so they can't all be internally consistent, right?
Sure. So the way that people interpret what they're seeing when we measure and observe stuff in the quantum, I don't know if I would equate that to a differing of personal opinion. It certainly is a difference in interpretation.
What would you equate it to?
A difference in interpretation?
Okay, so if we have different personal experiences with God, then isn't that a matter of difference of interpretation?
I guess you could say that. I'm just not sure how, when people have a difference in interpretation when it comes to a conclusion about reality that we make using science, I don't know how that's related to personal experience.
They're both
Can you-
interpretations of reality, right?
What I'm wondering, if these scientists, I don't know anything about quantum mechanics, just to be clear, with these different ideas about it, these different claims of how it works, are they all using the exact same method, or are they using different methods?
Are you talking about
Like
for
your example.
how they do experiments? I wouldn't
Yeah.
know it 100% because it
I
could be
think
that they
quantum
might.
mechanics is part of theoretical physics. So I think what quantum mechanics is all about, if I'm not mistaken, it's essentially theorizing what happened the like milliseconds before the Big Bang. So essentially it's a theory about what happened in that moment before the universe started expanding.
Well,
And so
I
they're
mean
trying to
that's only part of it, though. Like there's also quantum mechanics that go on today as to how.
Okay, well, I'm
how
ignorant of that.
atoms
I
and-
thought
yeah,
it was all about the Big Bang. Never mind then.
No. There's much more stuff than that. So, yeah. But either way, I'm not too sure. But I would just say this: that it's not like science has like complete consensus on virtually anything. It's a lot like many other things, and that's why science changes all the time, right? We grow and progress because they don't agree about things.
What do you think the best way to determine, like a scientific claim, let's say, what is the best way to know what is true with regards to it?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I'm not a scientist. I mean, just to be honest.
Well, I think there's different kinds of science too. Like there's theoretical physics, which is like more using mathematics, but then there's also like more observational sciences like chemistry. Like what happens when these two chemicals go together? Like some stuff is a little bit more knowable than others, I think, as well, just based on the nature of the claim. If it's a more mathematical or abstract claim, then it might not necessarily be directly observable, especially if we're talking about something like the beginning of the universe, because no one was there to observe it. Or if we're talking about, what happens when I mix these two chemicals together, I think that can be more repeatable and testable, and we can come to more firm conclusions about it. So I just think the nature of the claim also has to come into account.
Now, one last part to add personal experience. Isn't every scientific claim based on personal experience?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. I think maybe there's an element of it. I think if you can record what's occurring, right? If you can get a temperature, if you can get some sort of other scientific information, like record the volume, milliliters, if you can blank.
But
Wait.
if we said that we were going to rule out personal experience as a reliable method, then wouldn't that also take with it science?
I think so.
Um,
Because you can't like if you can't, you were just giving an example of like the volume of something, right? You can't find the volume of something without this experience of seeing it, right? Like your personal experience and your perception is a necessary component of doing science. And so there is an inescapable personal part of doing any type of science. It's empirical in nature. And so I think he's right. If we rule out personal experience altogether, we have to do science with it. And so I think if we were to maybe be careful about personal experience, we'd have to say like the personal experiences that are valid are ones that are absent of defeaters, kind of like we were saying earlier. Like if I said that this microphone is blue, like there are defeaters to that. People that aren't colorblind can see that it's black, and we can test the pigmentation of it, et cetera, and compare it to other things. But if I were to say like that it is a black microphone, there aren't defeaters to that, and we can test that and know that that's true. And so since there's no defeater of that claim, we should trust that it's true.
Okay. I think I'm picking up what you're putting down. And we are comparing kind of that to this Trinian God claim. In this Trinian God claim, I guess what is the... So you said the microphone, like if you claimed that it was blue, there'd be defeaters to that.
Yep.
I guess if I claimed that there was a duo God, I don't know, I'm making this up. If I claim something else other than that, how would we know that that's the case? What's the defeater?
Well, for me, the reason I trust the Bible is because of the history claims that I mentioned earlier, which I'd be happy to defend at any point.
Sure.
But basically, if you were to claim that, I would, ask what your sources are. I would ask if there's anything corroborating with you, because for the Bible, for example, there's like over 40 authors that were writing over like a 1500-year period that made a cohesive story, and all those different things. And so I think it has a much more solid basis for its claims than if some random person. This is why I'm not, for example, like Mormon, because Joseph Smith had some revelation and he says, I got this private revelation about God. There's no corroborating evidence for it. It's just what I think. Same thing with Islam, with Muhammad. It's like they all had one private thing happen. And so we don't trust that claim. But the difference with Christianity is that it's based on a historical claim. Paul says that if Jesus didn't die and rise from the dead, then Christianity, like our faith, is in vain. And so Christianity is different in the sense that it's based on a historical claim rather than a private personal experience only. Like that's a component of Christianity, obviously, to experience God, but it's not what the beginning of Christianity is based on. Like the foundation of Christianity is essentially a historical event.
And likewise, I think that the defeater for another religion or another claim about God would be the veracity of our own claims of Christianity. If our God says that he is the only God and there is no other, and he ends up being the true God, then no other religion can be true by definition, right? Now, of course, it's like someone else has to challenge and tear down the claims that we hold that Christianity is true, that Christ really is the Son of God who raised from the dead on the third day. Like, okay, those are the claims you'd have to tear down. But if that did happen, if Christ was raised from the dead, as God was, basically showing the whole world and validating the message of Christ, then therefore Christianity would be true and its negation would be false.
Okay. Nathan, I thought something you said was pretty interesting.
Sure.
You said that kind of like there's no defeaters for Christianity. And you said if there was this, I kind of just threw this in the window. I was like the duoian God, right?
Sure.
If I were to say that I had, this personal relationship, I have this relationship with this God, and I have strong arguments, and there's this history of this religious text. I guess would that be convincing to you that this God was true and existed?
Well, it would have to depend on the nature of the claims, but as Adam said, if Christianity is true, then the God of the universe can't be a binatarian God, I guess that would be called.
Okay,
Because
but
he's
I
been
was
revealed
struggling
as
for the
Trinitarian.
word.
Sure. If we were to assume, we would have to like assume Christianity is false, I guess, to entertain the claim. But yeah, because the
What?
reason I believe in Christianity is because of the historicity of the claim of Christ. It's based on an actual event that we can look at the historical documents available and make a positive claim that it's highly likely, at the very least, that he was crucified and that he was seen by his followers, risen 3 days later, and that they believed it to the point of death. Like, we have historical documents with these types of claims being made, and whether they're Christian sources as well as non-Christian sources within the first, second, and third centuries. And you might not like the third century documents, but they're historians documenting things and stuff. So we have good reasons to believe in the historicity of those claims. And so that's why like I said, personal experience brought me to Christianity. But then when I was having doubts, it was apologetics and history and argumentation that like gave me a foundation. And so my foundation and my confidence in Christianity is not based on my like personal experience, I guess.
Okay. If I this religion that I just kind of pulled out of my pocket, right? If there was historical documents that this religion had, and this is just hypothetical.
Sure.
If you were to discover that, if you were to think that these historical documents were reliable, what would that do to your confidence in this Trinian God?
I guess it would depend on what the claims are. I would have to like what kind of claims are we talking here? Because if it like contradicted Christianity, like maybe you're saying
yeah, let's say it does.
They're like mutually exclusive claims and they both have reliable history. I mean, so I'm working on something that I would call like the privation theory of truth. And so I believe that there's basically truth and there's that which doesn't correspond with the world. So the truth is that which corresponds with the world, and then there's that which doesn't. And so if Christianity is true, I would basically posit that something like that is logically impossible to be the case because it would necessarily not cohere with the world in the same way that Christianity does, because they would be making mutually exclusive claims. And so in that sense, I don't that would just be something that doesn't cohere with reality in the same way that Christianity does.
I'm gonna do one last thought experiment with you, and then I will move on to everyone else. I don't want to concentrate just on you, but
sure.
So imagine there's this alien, and his name is Alan, and he's never visited Earth. He doesn't know anything about humans. He comes from Mars, let's say. He lands a spaceship down in your backyard, and he hears me talking about this religion that I'm talking about, this God existing, and he talks to you, and he listens to everything that you have to say. How does Alan decide what he has confidence in, what to believe?
By listening to our arguments. And we would very much try and persuade him of the truth of God and the God of the Bible and the God of Jesus, the one who came down. And so, yeah, I guess it would depend. I mean, if you're talking about specifics, then you would get into a variety of things, but I'm not sure where else you would go from there, except for us to try and share the truth with him.
Okay.
I would just try to relay to him the facts as I know them. Yeah. The best I can.
Okay. Yeah, that's what you would do, I guess. But if Alan wants to believe only things that are true and not believe in anything that's false, I guess what method would he use to determine what to believe?
Well, I would adhere to something called Reformed epistemology, and so I believe in human testimony as a reliable source to knowledge as well. So there's perception, which is like our senses, the things we look around. Like we said, we can tell this microphone is black based on our experience. We also can come to knowledge through human testimony, and this is what's used in like courtrooms, for example. Like whenever a crime is committed, we hold eyewitness testimony very highly, and then we also have what is called the sensus divinitatis, which John Calvin coined the term of that, which is basically this sense that we all have that God exists within us. And, you can reject that if you want, but that's what I subscribe to personally. And so I think that these are valid pathways to knowledge. And so if you would reject the sensus divinitatis, then I would just rely upon perception as well as human testimony. And so I would once again just go to the historical documents of the Bible, because I think in the modern day, we just kind of consider the Bible a book. But the truth is, it wasn't always a book. Like it's a collection of books, and they were passed down for generations and generations, and they were written by scribes and copied by scribes. And so we could take each book of the Bible as a separate historical document, and then we could try to test the veracity of each one. And so I think we shouldn't view even the Bible as one source. Like Paul wrote 13 letters, and he's a different source than Matthew, and he's a different source than Mark. And I think a lot of times people view the Bible as one source when that's not actually the case. Even though it all has one author, like the Holy Spirit, we believe guided the authorship, but they all ultimately they are different historical documents from different sources, and we can look at Paul's claims and look at Peter's claims and Matthew's claims, etc., and see that these things are multiply attested.
Okay, got it. I wrote down a couple things on my physical notes that I want to come back to. Eyewitness testimony and different sources, and I think that probably plays into the history of the Bible. So to what you were saying initially. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. I want to jump back to Matt, since I've been talking to you guys for quite a bit here. Matt, so
sure.
With regards to Alan, he lands in your backyard. I guess, how does he determine what is true?
A couple good ways. Start measuring things. That'd be great.
Measuring what? Or I guess with regards to whether...
grass, weeds.
Measure grass.
How tall am I? How tall are you?
If Alan wants to, learn true things about the world, what's the best way to go about that?
I guess specifically if the Trinian God is real, or the God I invented, or if God doesn't exist.
Forgive me, Pierce, but shouldn't the question be, Matt, how do you convince him that his God doesn't exist? I guess I thought that was the inverse, right?
It's not really, because Matt could present an argument to Alan, right? And
because doesn't Alan? I thought you said Alan Kim's with his religious beliefs, right?
No, he doesn't know anything about. He doesn't know anything about Earth. He doesn't know anything about people, or religion at all. He's completely neutral. He's an alien.
Oh, okay.
At least that's how I was supposed to set it up. Maybe I missed
really quickly, just for the audience, I want to say I'm not like leaning back and stuff because I'm not interested. I have like a pinched nerve in my neck, and so I can't feel my shoulder if I sit up too long. So I'm laying back just because my shoulder is numb. So I apologize if it looks like I don't care, or I'm disinterested. I really am listening.
No, you're right, Nathan. It doesn't even really look. It doesn't even look like that. I would have never noticed.
Okay, I'm like leaning back because when I sit up, I'm like,
good, Nathan.
This.
You're good, man.
But yeah. Anyways, sorry. I just don't want the audience to think like Nathan doesn't care about this. He's just like chilling.
Well, I think you're missing the cigar. You need to.
Oh, that's true. I need to. Yeah. Anyways, I just wanted to clarify for everybody listening.
Cool. So Matt, what's the best way for Alan to make this determination?
I would tell Alan to gather up as many people as he could from different parts of the world with different beliefs, different biases, different personalities, and see if they will all converge on the best way to measure grass. And then I would say that would be I would say that Alan could have high confidence in that that was the best way to measure grass.
Okay. How do we measure
Right.
a God?
Good question. I guess first we would need a definition for which we could start to devise hypothesis around. So then maybe start at the beginning again, see if you can go around to people all around the world, different faiths and cultures and biases, and see if you can converge on some sort of definition that everybody will agree on, despite where they're coming from. And if we can get that down, then maybe we can start to make hypotheses about how we might be able to discover if that thing is real.
Okay. I guess if everyone, if Alan asked everyone and they all gave exactly the same answer, and it was, with a ruler, and I guess what would that mean? Would that mean that what's the conclusion here? What's the method? I'm lost.
If they all said it was a ruler?
Sure. I don't know. I couldn't think of something.
Well, then I guess we
they-
could go ahead.
If they all said it was personal experience. I don't know. If they all had the same personal experience.
If everybody on the planet had the same personal experience as to what God was, if everybody on the planet had the same personal experience,
I guess really what I'm confused about is why is he going around asking people? I'm lost at that part. What's the point of that?
oh, because then whatever answer that we seem to converge on, we would know, or we could be more confident in that our cultural biases, our faith biases, where we come from, our different personalities, we could be more confident in that those weren't playing a part in the conclusion that we've reached.
Okay. So it will eliminate bias, or at least different cultural bias. Maybe other biases too.
Right.
Or help eliminate. Maybe not completely eliminate. And
Right.
I guess, does that help you come to a conclusion? Does that get you highly confident in a conclusion?
No, well, in my opinion, that's just the starting point. I think that's where
That's
you'd
the
have to
starting
start.
Okay. How do you get to the end point? How do you get to highly confident one way or the other?
Well, in the case of the God thing, and let's just say hypothetically, we all converged on ruler. That's the way we measure it, or personal experience, whatever. Then we could start to make hypotheses about a thing, and we could say, if we pray in the name of this God, then this will happen. And then if that happened, that could raise our confidence that that God exists.
Okay.
Do we think that prayer needs to be like 100% efficacious for God to be real? Is that like a proposition you would maybe affirm?
No, I guess I use that as sort of a shorthand.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
'cause
like
it's
I could
difficult.
pray. So like I could pray like that God gives me $1 million, and if he doesn't do that, he could still exist. Like he doesn't have to answer every prayer. Like you would be fine with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I guess
Okay.
what I was saying is that it would increase my confidence if we did that and it did happen. And then we did
Mm.
it again and
Mhm.
it happened again. My
Okay.
confidence is going to keep going up.
So what if we surveyed the world? And Alan went around surveying all of the people, and he found that the number one way people understand and know God is through prayer and personal experience.
Yeah. Then, well, so wait, what's the question? What should we ask him?
Yeah. So if Alan finds out that the number one way to know if God exists is through personal experience and prayer, then what should be the response from everyone else? Like if that's the scientific claim, right?
The claim. So Alan goes around and everybody says everybody.
Personal
that he
experience
talks
is
to-
how you get to know God and how you discover that he exists.
Okay. Yeah. Then I think we would need to determine the reliability of personal experience. And
But if
how we
if
should
that was
use
the
that.
case, then wouldn't it show that your methods of trying to measure him in any other way would be the least effective methods possible to know if God exists?
I don't know, because I don't know what all the methods to figure out if a God exists are.
Yeah, but I'm saying if we did a survey, right? We did
Yeah.
a survey, and pretty much the way that everyone says that how we know God exists is through prayer. Then wouldn't it stand to reason that that would be the correct or the proper one of the proper methods of knowing his existence is for people just to encounter him themselves?
With the juxtaposition that we were using earlier with the ruler, I think we sort of skipped a step in like that ruler. We would have to determine how reliable the ruler is. If we take that ruler and we measure out an inch here, an inch there, everybody that has different biases takes that ruler and they all get an inch. Yeah, this thing's an inch. Then that would raise my confidence that the ruler is a reliable method to measure things. And obviously that doesn't really transpose onto the God claim because you can't measure with a ruler. But I think that step that I skipped when talking about that was just that whatever method we can converge on with the least amount of bias, then we should try to determine whether or not that is a good method. And if it is, then we can start to make hypotheses about the world and see if they come true.
Would you consider yourself like an empiricist? Like you prefer empirical data above anything else? Or do you maybe even think empirical data is the only way to come to knowledge, maybe?
I might say I prefer it. I would definitely not say it's the only way to come to knowledge.
Okay. That's good. So what would the other ways of coming to knowledge be for you? Like this is epistemology, right? How do we know things, right? So we've seen empirical data would be like our perception, kind of what we talked about earlier. Like we can know this mic is black by looking at it. What are other ways to come to knowledge in your view?
Well, when you say the mic is black and we can figure that out because we can look at it, like I think like, are there other ways to figure out if that mic is black? Like, is there a sort of pigment measurement device that we could use? Is there like, I mean, colors are like what, light refraction? I'm completely out of my element. That's what I think of.
Pigmentation would be probably the best way to explain it, like what pigment it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, but still it would be based on our perception, right? Because if we wouldn't be able to verify it is the pigment that it is without looking as well. We have to look at the mic and then we also have to look at the pigment chart. And so either way, we're using our eyes, right? And so we would probably need like other ways to come to knowledge other than our senses. Like we would need, like, for example, I mentioned earlier, human testimony like that. That's another way to knowledge. That's what we use in courtrooms. Like if I saw a murder happen, I would be considered like a top witness. They would want me on the stand and say what happened, and they would hold what I say highly because I was there, right? And so, and there's also memory, like we remember things. That's another way to come to knowledge as well. Things that we've experienced in the past. So would you think that there are other ways to come to knowledge, or do you think that what I've said is exhaustive, or what do you think?
Good questions. Yeah. I think that in the case of you witnessing the murder, that could be a good way to come to knowledge. I wouldn't say, in my opinion, it's not extremely reliable. In the same way that it's my opinion that memory is not extremely reliable. And
Okay. Why is
yeah,
that?
so
Why do you view human testimony lower, I guess? Is it because there's like a subjective element to it? Is that what kind of makes you weary about it?
that's part of it. I know that even in my own life, and this is just using anecdotal evidence that I've witnessed things that other people have witnessed that we don't agree on. And I know I'm not the only one. So
Okay.
yeah.
Is there anything that like courtrooms could do differently then to like reach just convictions? Like other than like pulling witnesses to the stand? Like let's say there was a crime where there weren't cameras, so like, we can't watch it happen. Like what would be the best way to come to the knowledge of what happened beyond like human testimony in your eyes? Or would that be the only way in that case?
It really depends on the circumstance of the thing. Like if it was like a gunshot wound or something, I know that there's ways to measure where a bullet came from and from which direction, and you could maybe hunt down the serial number of a gun, figure out who owned it. That like all of these things would, I think, give me small bits of confidence along the way to determining a conclusion.
But what if
But I know
I have a gun? What if I have a gun, for example, and then someone steals it and then commits a crime with it,
Mhm,
and there's no cameras around to see it,
mhm.
and that but there was like two people that saw it happen? You know, would they be the highest way to know what really happened, considering it wasn't me that pulled the trigger, it was my gun, but it wasn't me. You know, like because sometimes stuff like that happens where
Mhm,
a crime is committed with a weapon that they don't own. There are even people that break into people's homes and then kill people with stuff in the home. You know, like they could kill you with something in your house. You know, so like stuff
mhm.
like that happens too. So we can't go totally based on like who owned the weapon or something. You know.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, and what I was trying to say was that I think all of those would be small bits of the argument. I think if you had the two guys that saw it happen, we should consider their testimony. I'm not saying that we should listen to what they have to say and then come to a conclusion with 100% confidence that what those two guys said happened. But it should be considered, especially if we don't have a lot of other evidence. Yeah.
hmm Okay. And as far as human testimony goes, and the reason I'm asking you these questions is because it relates to the history of the Bible. I'm not just
Hmm.
like on a rabbit hole, because these are the ways that I view the reliability of the testimony of Scripture. Like I think if we don't have access to the event in question, like Jesus dying and rising from the dead, then the best access we have to that fact is the eyewitnesses. And so I'm trying to figure out how else we could know or verify that a historical event happened. And so, in that circumstance, I think human testimony has to be our primary way to come to knowledge. Wouldn't you agree? If it's something, especially in history, where we didn't experience it at all, it seems like we're left with the historical documentation that we have, right?
I would somewhat agree with you. The the problem for me would lie in what is in other historical texts that I don't think happened, and maybe you don't think happened.
Sure.
And there are people that write historical texts, there are people that write scripture,
hmm
and both of those for me are very low in value when I'm rating them in terms of evidence.
Are you
I think
saying
it's
you're
really difficult to know what happened in the past,
are,
hmm
are you saying
especially
you rate history as a category low, or you rate particularly certain parts of history or certain documents as low?
certain claims. Sorry, yeah, I should have been more clear about that. Certain
So,
claims.
kind of like a resurrection, for example, you would be like, okay, we need something really convincing to convince me something like that happened.
That
But
yeah,
for something like Julius Caesar was the emperor of Rome, you need a little less than that because that's a smaller claim. Is that kind of what you're saying?
exactly. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
aware that emperors existed, and that doesn't seem to violate any laws of nature. So I
Okay.
don't have any problem taking a claim like that on face value more than I would a larger claim.
Okay.
So
And
if
so, oh,
go
sorry.
ahead, Nathan. Sorry.
So I was just going to ask a question about: do you think that you have any reason to doubt the historical reliability of what the claimed supposed eyewitnesses of Jesus have? Like, is there any reason that you personally doubt their testimony? Is it just because the claim is big, or is there like maybe internal contradictions, or maybe, I don't know, like what is it about the Gospels that you find unconvincing when it comes to their testimony?
Mostly that there's just no way to verify them, especially the big claims. I have quips with the historicity claims with traditional authorship. I have
Sure.
issues with that, but that's way in the weeds.
Well, I'd be
If we
happy to
wanna
defend
go.
traditional authorship as well. I think that's an important part of the historicity of the Bible. If the Gospels were not written by who they claim to be written by, then we have a problem, because they're not eyewitnesses now, and so now their testimony should be lower. And so, I actually think what you just said is good. Like, we need to actually know if who wrote the Bible is who they claim to be. Do you have like, why do you doubt the classical authorship, if you don't mind me asking?
I just don't think that there's any way to verify it. I think that the claims that are made about the authors of the Gospels are unfalsifiable, and so I don't really know how to approach it. I don't take a lot of confidence in just reliable folks saying
Okay.
things.
Okay.
If you don't mind
Um,
me jumping
oh yeah,
in real
sorry.
quick here. Yeah, no problem, no problem. That was really great. I'm wondering, with regards to personal testimony, right? Or any type of eyewitness testimony, how do we determine if what there's, I mean, would you guys agree that there have been eyewitnesses that have maybe even believe something to be true? I'm not even saying that they're lying, but they believe they witnessed something, absolutely swore on it, and that thing was not true.
Mhm.
That's occurred in history of the earth. We're in agreement. Cool. I guess, how do we know if that eyewitness is saying something that is truthful or something that is false? How do we determine that?
You judge each
Um,
one individually. Go ahead, Nate.
Okay.
Well, for me, I'm actually reading a book right now on an argument from undesigned coincidences in the Gospels. And so there are actually
Okay.
internal ways that testimonies can actually corroborate one another. And so, for example, let's use the crime analogy again, so that we can, keep on the same page. Or
Sure.
actually, let's use a coffee shop analogy. Let's do something even apart from a crime. Let's say
Okay.
that Adam and I are going to meet for coffee. We're buddies. We're going to go get some coffee. And Matt meets us there. And, we've never met in person before, but Matt comes and he sits down. And then after this coffee conversation, I come to you, Pierce. Me and Adam come to you and say, or let's say me and Matt, because I don't know, I don't know Matt as much, so I won't pick on him. Let's say me and Matt come to you, Pierce, and we say, Adam, after during this conversation, Adam spilled coffee all over himself, and it was just a horrible mess. But Adam denies that this happened. Okay, we're all three there, but Adam denies that it happened. The way that you would test which claim is true is Pierce would have to sit down with each person individually and actually say, like, okay, what happened from start to finish? And if the if the stories that Matt and I are saying corroborate one another in ways that are undesigned. So, for example, let's say I say that the coffee shop was super crowded, way more crowded than normal. We could barely even fit into the coffee shop. We were all just huddled in. And then Matt says something like, we were sitting right next to a walkway. That would corroborate our hypothesis that Adam maybe spilled coffee all over himself, because maybe someone bumped into him and he spilled coffee over himself. And those are two details that would corroborate that. And if we were to be looking at a crime, right, like if two witnesses say something where you can tell they're not like trying to corroborate what the other person is saying, they're doing it in a casual way, they're just telling you what happened, and one detail they give and one detail the other person gives fit like a glove together, that would be one way that we can test their reliability. And the Gospels do this in a lot of places. Like, I could give you many examples where this happens, where one question is raised in one gospel and it's corroborated by a casual fact in another one. And I'd be happy to give an example if you want one.
No, I believe there are a lot of things that both sections of the Bible, both authors, different authors, say the same thing. I definitely think that's the case. You don't have to give an example. I'm wondering, though, if there was an example where one author said one thing and then in another part of the Bible, it was something else was said by a different author, would that lower your confidence?
It depends on the type of detail, because there are places where the testimonies seem to contradict one another.
Hmm.
And I agree with that. Like in the Gospels, you might see a story,
Mhm.
like, for example, where Peter cuts off the ear of the man, like when Jesus is being convicted. Like in, I believe it's Mark, Jesus heals the man's ear. And that's not mentioned in John, right? And in John's Gospel, he cuts off the ear, and John doesn't mention that Jesus heals his ear. And so that would seem like a contradiction, right? Like those two testimonies
Yeah, it
contradict
seems
one
like he
another.
would mention it. Yeah, right.
Sure. But then we look in John in his trial with Pontius Pilate, and he asked Jesus the question, are you the king of the Jews? And he was basically saying, we're not violent towards you. We've shown no violence towards you. And how could Jesus say that if the chapter before Peter had just cut off his ear, if he didn't turn around and heal his ear afterwards? Like
Okay.
the detail in John's gospel, this is like an undesigned coincidence that I'm talking about. Like John mentioning that Jesus said, we have shown no violence towards you, doesn't make any sense if you read John on its own. If you read the chapter before that, Peter just cut off this man's ear. Like clearly they've shown violence. But then you look in I believe it's Mark, it might be Matthew, but in one of those two gospels, the question is answered. He healed his ear. And so that's why he can say without lying, we haven't shown violence towards you, because he had just healed his ear. And so I guess what you're asking, it would depend on the type of contradiction, I guess, because for me, that would be an argument from silence. If you were to say John and Matthew contradict one another because John doesn't mention the healing of the ear and Matthew does, or Mark does, I would just say that's an argument from silence, and that's not actually a contradiction.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
What if there was a contradiction? Would that lower your confidence? If there was a ironclad contradiction? Not saying that there is, hypothetically.
sure. If there was a logical contradiction, yeah, actually, because I think the laws of logic are the thoughts
Okay.
of God, right? I believe that the laws of logic are basically just the way that God thinks. That's what I believe is the grounding of the laws of logic. And so if there is a logical contradiction in scripture where like it, they could not be reconciled in any way, then yeah, I would actually say that Christianity would be false. I wouldn't even just
Okay.
say,
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't even just say it's, because logical contradictions are not like, that's no small thing. That's actually why I think other religions are false. I mentioned earlier about how if the sentence God is love is in the text, but you're not a triune God or more than one God, that's a logically incoherent concept of God in my view. And so that's what makes it false. Like that's a defeater. Like we mentioned earlier, we can say, I can trust my experience as long as there's no defeater. Like for the Mormon God or for the Islamic God, I would say that's the defeater, because both of their books say God is love. The Mormon book says that, and the God of Islam says that. But because they're not triune, that is logically incoherent, which is why I think they're false. But I don't think there is such a thing in the Bible. I don't think there is a logical contradiction like that.
What if there was a more mundane contradiction, like an observation that one of the writers made that contradicts? What would that do to your confidence?
Well, it depends on your doctrine of inspiration. There's a lot of people that would say like there are no errors or no contradictions in the Bible. And I want to be very careful how I say this, because I do believe that God's word, as he said it, is infallible. But I also want to leave room for the fact that he used human beings to pass down the documents. And so God might have said one thing, and then through the hundreds of times it was copied, a copyist
There might have been a
happened.
minor mistake here and there.
Yeah, and I'm willing to accept that something like that took place. I'm not like, there are many places in scripture you could point to where something like that happens, but most of the time, if you look at another manuscript, you can see like, oh, he just misspelled that word. Like that's where that came from. Like in over 99% of circumstances in New Testament critical scholarship and in textual criticism, we actually know what the original text said. Like over 99% of the alleged errors in the manuscripts are just like misspellings, and we can verify from another manuscript what was actually said. So there's only like less than 1% of errors in the New Testament specifically that, you know, that we could debate about and be like, what did it say? We don't know. But it's over verses that don't affect the theology at all. It's like there's one verse that's like, does it say God, what was one of them? It was like, God is from the light, or God is the light. And it's like, it doesn't really change. I think both of those things are affirmed elsewhere in scripture, so it doesn't actually matter what that one says. So I don't know. That would be what I'd say to that.
Thank you, Nathan. Adam, I got a question for you. What could you learn or discover that would reduce your confidence that the triune God exists?
I don't know. I mean, like, what could I learn? I mean, are you asking just about logical possibilities, or do you mean like?
Oh, wide open. Anything.
Oh, I guess maybe what you mean when you ask your question is like, what would it take to convince me that Christianity is false or something, right?
I suppose someone could look at it that way. Sure.
Or reduce your confidence. Like it may be just being like, I kind of question if this is true now. Maybe you just don't know. Maybe you still believe, but maybe be like, I don't know.
Yeah. What would get you from very confident to just moderately confident?
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea. I can't really think of anything. No. Yeah, it's difficult to imagine because it feels like, yeah, there's a broad breadth of evidence, arguments, and personal experience, cooperation with friends. There's a lot of things that would have to be overcome, right?
Okay.
So I feel like it's a large stack that you would have to begin to assail things. So, because like, let's say that somebody knocked down a theistic argument that I currently hold, right? Okay, cool. It would kill that argument, and I would go, okay, that argument no longer works. But that would change nothing about my Christian beliefs. That would change nothing about my faith in Christ. So, yeah, I don't know.
What if you
I
were
would
to
say
discover...
if they found an ossuary that said, "Here lies the bones of Jesus of Nazareth," like that.
Yeah,
would
so
be
this is the only major one that I think is got some validity to it, right? Is the idea that somebody found the bones, had some very serious historical, archaeological evidence that really showed that it was highly probable that this really was Christ's body. The disciples made it up, all of those sorts of things, right? You know, and it's signed at the bottom, Peter, James, and John, you know, # Paul, right? We made it up, guys. I don't know.
Well, for me, like Paul literally says in his letters that if Christ did not rise from the dead, then our faith is in vain. And so Paul puts all of Christianity on the historical claim of Jesus dying and rising from the dead. And so I'm with Paul. I agree with him. If Jesus didn't die and rise from the dead, then my faith is in vain. And so it would have to be something to disprove that.
# truth of Christianity.
Yeah, and I also agree with Adam in the sense that I have so many reasons to believe in Christianity. Like it would take a lot of that's why I go to Jesus, because that would be like the one-stop shop. If you could show me Jesus didn't die and rise from the dead, I'll stop believing tomorrow. But if you, like, for example, topple down the Kalam cosmological argument, I still got the psychophysical harmony argument and the moral argument and other things like that. So it would just be like, oh, okay, I won't use cosmological arguments anymore. You know, it wouldn't really debunk Christianity like in the way Jesus's bones would be. like an actual defeater.
If there was someone else who believed in a different religion, and they said that the only way that they would ever reduce their confidence that their religion is true is if they found, some physical evidence that contradicted it. Should they hold that confidence because this physical evidence hasn't been discovered?
I don't understand the question, Pierce. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Absent defeaters, you should trust your experience. I would just go back to that answer Adam gave earlier. If they don't have a defeater for their claim, you can trust your experience.
Okay. Maybe I can clarify, Adam. I'll try to think of an example. I guess the only thing I can think of is a relatively wacky example.
I feel like, honestly, a lot of your analogies have been a bit of a stretch to try and get there.
Yeah, and I don't want to do that again.
Yeah, let's just keep going. Let's move on.
Okay. Is
that cool?
Sure. Yeah, actually, I want to move on to Matt. I want to ask basically the exact opposite. What could increase your confidence?
Good evidence according to my standards. Novel, testable predictions. Those would shift me dramatically.
What kind of evidence?
Like if we were to pray in the name of the triune God that this pencil didn't fall when I dropped it, that would completely shatter my worldview if it happened. And if we could do it multiple times, that would greatly increase my confidence that God exists.
What if
And
it just happened one time?
If it happened once and we were all here to witness it, it would nudge me. I don't know if it would nudge me as much. Yeah. It would definitely cause me to question.
I have a question then, because it seems you want repeatable miracles, but wouldn't miracles by definition not be repeatable? Like if God is trying to show, like, because the way that I would define a miracle is like something supernatural that's happening in order to, like, that can't be explained naturally. And usually God does miracles in like theologically significant ways. So Jesus rising from the dead, for example, that's a miracle that confirms his teaching, for example. But it's not something that's been repeated. Like, people aren't just rising from the dead here and there. It happens every now and then, but usually that's like medical professionals shocking people alive and stuff. But like the miracle of like God raising someone from the dead has only happened once in history. I believe so. Obviously you would reject that, but why does it need to be repeatable, I guess? And wouldn't that change it being a miracle by definition?
I guess it depends. Like, if we're going with that definition, it really depends. I guess the way that I'm thinking about it is like, if this God exists and it's able to suspend the laws of physics temporarily, certainly it could do something once. That's just unfortunate in my mind. I don't necessarily need for something to be repeatable, but the more repeatable it is, the more confidence I'll have in it.
Have you looked into Aristotle's proof of God at all?
Is he the prime mover?
Yeah, the unmoved mover guy.
Yeah.
So Aristotle tried to demonstrate through logic alone that there is a unmoved mover, but at the same time he's the beginning, like first cause. But Aristotle also believed that this first cause also held all things together all the time. And funnily enough, that's what the book of Colossians says. The book of Colossians says he's before all things and he holds all things together. And so do you think that in and of itself is like a repeatable miracle, like the mere fact of existence? Like, because think about a world like where nothing exists. Wouldn't being itself be a miracle? Like existing, like the fact that we exist to me is crazy.
I will agree with you in the sense that I also think the fact that we exist is a miracle.
Yeah, and so the fact that we
by your
continue to
definition.
exist. Yeah, so like Aristotle would say, like that is God. The fact that existence began and the fact that it's happening now. And he demonstrated this through logic alone. And so I would just recommend reading Aristotle. He's not a Christian, he was a pagan, but just that to me, since you did just grant that existence itself is crazy, right? Like the fact that we're here and having a conversation on the internet, like that is nuts, right? And so to me, like that's a repeatable miracle that happens every moment of every day, that we're sitting here right now and we exist. And I am the same person I was when I was 5. Like that is crazy. Like continuation of consciousness.
Yeah, those are crazy. I will agree. I will agree that those are crazy things that are real.
It's nuts, man. We sound like we're like high schoolers that are stoned. Like, man, the fact that we exist is just
Right?
nuts,
Like
bro.
it's so cool, bro.
Like, dude, I can't believe we're here, man. Like,
Someone
could you
make
have-
note of an hour and 26 minutes. I got to clip that out right there.
yeah, for sure.
It's like, just imagine if we weren't here.
Like-
Whoa.
Whoa, dude! Like if nothing was here.
Whoa.
I wish I could read the comments. I see there's like 46 of them, but for some reason my computer went into like power save mode and it won't let me click on anything. And so I
Oh.
want to read the comments, but I can't read any of them. So I'm sorry.
Is there any good ones, Pierce? Anything that-
nothing that like I really wanted. Well, actually, no. There was one. This one.
Yeah.
I think
I
you're
agree
a little, you're biased on that one.
Yeah, I might
there's
be a
some
little
bias,
bit biased.
Pierce, you're
Um,
pretty great, man. We just met, but I think you're a cool guy.
oh, thank you. You're pretty cool too.
I think they typed this one in incorrectly though, but if you don't mind, let me hit this one. They meant to say Pierce is a man of stoned. No.
As a man of stone.
Beautiful. Darwin to Jesus. I like that name. Even though, do we have to deny evolution to be Christian? I don't think so, but
Oh.
maybe that's another
Yeah.
conversation for another day.
If there's one thing that I've taken away from this, it's that we could probably sit and talk about Christianity for hours. I have a whole
yeah.
page of notes that I don't think really fit into this conversation, but I can see that as a possibility for sure.
Yeah. And I would love to talk with you guys in another context as well. Like, I don't know if I could have you guys on my channel another time and we could
Sure.
talk more specifics, because we've talked about a lot of topics. Like maybe we could be prepared or something. Like I could talk specifically about the historicity of the Bible with one of you or something. And I would be happy to do something like that. Cause I really do think the Bible is an extraordinary collection of books. It really is unbelievable. The fact that it's here and the way that it is. So yeah, I would love to talk more with you guys about that.
As long as you give me enough time to practice the word historicity, because I have problems saying that word.
It is a difficult one. I remember the first time I heard it, I was like, that is a cool word, man. Historicity. Like, I think the first person I ever heard say it was like William Lane Craig. And I was like, this guy's got a cool vocabulary. Those are some SAT words right there.
You did great, Pierce. Good job.
Thank you. I want to do. I know you guys probably all want to wrap up. It sounds like you're in consensus on that. But I want to
Yeah.
do one last thing, on one last thought experiment. We got a book here. Sophia's Magical Necklace. Hey, look.
What, is that created by Pierce Watkins?
It is.
Shameless
It
plug.
is. Yeah, it is a shameless plug, but there is a real question behind this.
Okay.
So a part of this book is about Sophia and how her necklace is magical, right? How could we determine whether that is the case or not? What method should we use
To test magic.
to test if Sophia's necklace is magic, brings good fortune to her?
I don't know, since I don't have any rule books for magic.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I know that I do
Yeah.
believe in witchcraft. I believe it's real, and I do believe that it has real effects. But I'm not familiar with the witchy arts.
Actually, you know what? I have found the solution. I immediately would have to go out and buy Pierce's book and wait for it to get to my house to read it to find out the answer.
There we go. Right. I will say this. The only thing I know about witches, and this is kind of creepy, and maybe this will scare everyone tonight. I hope you guys don't all have nightmares from this. But between the hours of like 2 and 5 a.m., a lot of witches go out and like curse people's homes. Like one of my friends caught witches doing this one day. He like got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, and he looked out his front door, and he literally saw witches outside of his house, like doing rituals in his like in the street in front of his house. And he was like, "Oh my gosh!" And I've heard a lot of stories like that. So like that's the time of night that they're out doing crazy stuff. So very creepy. So yeah, I think witchcraft is real, and those people are dedicated and be up at 4 a.m. doing rituals outside.
I want to talk to you about that.
Can't be
someday.
me. I love
Yeah,
sleep,
that'd be
man.
that'd be a fun conversation.
I
That would
love
be,
to
that'd be great.
If the necklace were magical and we needed to figure out if that was true, what did you say? It brought good fortune.
Yeah.
I would try to see if Sophia could have good fortune without the necklace, or if other
Okay.
people had exclusively good fortune with the necklace. That might be another good test.
Okay. So kind of like an A/B test. Test with it, test without it.
Yeah, let's start there.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe jump out of a helicopter with a parachute and try and
So-
land on the ground and
It's a bold
dodge
test.
truck.
man.
And...
You really?
Oh,
got
I'm sorry. I
confidence in
said
that
yeah,
necklace,
without
bro.
a parachute.
Without
Yeah.
All right.
Wow.
Anyone got any last words before we end the stream?
This was a lot of fun. I'm really grateful that you guys came on, and Pierce, thank you for putting this on. I love doing Spectrum anytime. Hit me up. I'll be here.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for having me. I know I talked a lot.
Oh,
I do.
that's
I
what you're supposed to
literally,
do.
I'm a radio host, so I talk for a living. So this is just ask any of my friends. They're like, when I became a radio host, they were like, "This is the perfect job for you, bro. You never shut up." So like, so if I just controlled the conversation, my bad. But yeah, it's just a bad habit of mine.
Oh, you're all good.
All good.
Yep. Appreciate you. I look forward to you sending me your book. And
I got a whole bunch. All right.
I got a free copy, and it wasn't even signed. What the heck?
Oh, maybe I should have.
Yeah, I need a signed copy too. Actually, I'll give you money for it. Yeah.
yeah,
That way,
Sure.
if you get famous one day, I'll be like, "Hey, I know him."
I am famous. There's 4 people watching right now.
Oh,
Nice.
hey, yeah. Let's go.
Right.
We are hitting the big leagues tonight, boys.
yeah. Thanks,
No one's
thanks for
ever
the-
done that. No one has
Hey.
ever streamed for 5 people. No one has ever done that.
Like I said, I mean, that's like a mom for each of us, you know?
Yeah.
Hmm.
You know, Adam, really quick before we end, me and Adam just did a video last week where we streamed like an apologetics board game. Like we should maybe even get
That's a
together
thing.
and play like some type of game or something. I feel like, I don't know, this was a cool group of guys. Maybe we could do another stream where we do something fun like that.
Yeah, I'm not so sure they do well at the apologetics board game, but
Yeah, we can
probably-
find something else to do. But yeah.
I love all games. I'll give it a
Yeah.
shot. I don't,
that
Yeah,
would,
I don't
would
know.
be kind of funny.
I
It's
don't
funny
know.
that you
If
mentioned.
if people like the conversation, they might want to see us do something fun. I don't know. I just thought of that.
It's actually funny that you mentioned that because we previously we were regularly doing kind of like a game night for the SE community, but that is one heck of an idea. I mean, I'd be down for that.
I'd play that game. I'd play any game.
Cool. Well, yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for having us and stuff. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, hey, we're still holding out for both Matt and Pierce to convert to Christianity, and then we'll have a different conversation.
Right. We could quote Cameron Bertuzzi, be like, "By the way, Christianity's true." Isn't that what he says at like the end of every video or something like that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't watch all his videos.
I mean, I've seen a few of his. He's always like, "By the way, Christianity's true." Like at the end of all of them.
He's a good
and,
marketer.
and Matt,
He's
don't
really good at marketing.
don't forget to send me a message when the pencil doesn't hit the ground.
I'm waiting. Every day I'm looking at this damn pencil. Come on, float pencil.
All right.
You know, if
finally,
God did that for you, I would think it would prove like, you know, he loves you, man. You know, but if he doesn't do it, once again, it doesn't change that. But you know, if he did do that for you, I'd be here for it.
all right, we'll wrap up here. And last thing I want to say, if you want to learn more about street epistemology, go to streetepistemology.com. And there's also a Discord. I can put that link somewhere in the comment. Well, go Google it. You'll find it, man. And if you do join Discord, there's a lot of fun people like myself and Matt over there. And that's probably the best way to engage with the community. So with that being said, that's all. See everybody later.
Bye.